evening, Senator Anwar.
Thank you, Madam President. Sometimes, you know, the attorneys can make things more confusing. You'll need a doctor to clarify things. I first of all rise in to share some comments about HB 6004. I wanted to first start by thanking Senator Gary Winfield and also Representative Staffstrom for their hard work. This is truly a lot of work that has gone on behind the scenes to get to this point, but also a lot of conversations with multiple different legislators and public. I don't know if people recall, there were 12 hours of conversation that had happened. I want to share a perspective with you, and I have a piece of paper here, and then on one side of this paper we have the public, and on the other side of the paper we have the police. And then what is right now happening in our state is that we are saying it's one versus the other. But what we do not realize is that it's still one paper. If we are going to harm one side of the paper, the other side of the paper is going to be harmed automatically. And this is going to be critical for us as we move forward as a community, as a state, as people, that we need to recognize that this conversation should not be binary. And what I am seeing right now is that there are individuals within our honorable Senate, but there are people on the outside as well who are actually saying that if you vote against this bill, you are against the African Americans and all minorities. And if you vote for this bill, you are against the police officers. And that is not how a sustainable, healthy society would exist. So again, we are on the same team, and I want to go through point by point of some of the aspects of the bill which would be relevant to try and illustrate why this bill is relevant and needed. First thing is, why are we here? And the reason we are here is that there is a problem. For some of the people to act surprised that there is no problem, I think they may be living in a different reality, and I don't want to get into somebody else's reality, but I can share with you the reality of the people that I am interacting with and the things that I am seeing. This is based on data. 90% of the African Americans in the communities feel that they are not treated right by the police. 90%. And I'll repeat this. Let it sink in. Because for the people who think that there is no problem and we should not be here and we should not be actually having this conversation, 90% of the African Americans feel that they are not treated right. And 57% of the white Americans feel that the minorities are not treated right either. So we have a recognition across the board that there is a problem. And then the actual issue of the murder of George Floyd in the manner that it has happened, and what it shook the entire country. It shook the entire world for that matter, and it shook the state of Connecticut. And here's the reality from a civil lawsuit perspective. Derek Chauvin, the alleged murderer, would walk scot-free on a civil lawsuit in the state of Connecticut. Today, as of right now at 11:20 p.m., I guess it's the 28th of July, at this time, this individual would be able to walk scot-free if he did this in our state. And with the historic issue, with the current issue, and the fact that we have a litmus test which would allow an individual like that to not be impacted by the civil lawsuits, we have a problem. And hence we are here, and hence we should have this conversation, and hence this is an emergency to have this conversation. Let's look at it from the perspective of the people whose lives are directly impacted when a father and a mother are having a conversation with their young African American child, how they have to behave in the society, and nobody else has to have that conversation. We have a problem and we have an emergency. When children are seeing the images that have shaken us all, and those very images are seeing and formulating the perspective of our children. In the state of Connecticut, there's a video, and I would urge all my fellow legislators, especially the ones who are having many problems with this bill, should look at what a child, a small 8-year-old child was behaving when he saw a police car come. And when I actually had the conversation with the police officers that I know and I respect and I love, they also had tears in their eyes, because this is not who they are, this is not how they want to police the state, and this is not how they want to see our state and the community. So, now we know why we are here. Let's look at what the bill does. Well, first of all, we need to recognize for any society, a sustainable, healthy society, you need a police force, an effective professional police force, period. They are an essential ingredient of protection of the community, but they're also an ingredient of the public. They are people like us. They are parents, they are brothers and sisters, mothers. They are just like we are as in the public as well. So that's important, but they are a little different. Why? Because they have taken an oath to put themselves in harm's way. It takes very special people to take an oath to put themselves in harm's way, to the point they are at a high alert for such a level that we know from medical data that the police officers who are working, they get heart attacks at a younger age. So these are very special individuals who have a calling to serve the people above and beyond their personal well-being. And this constant state of alertness causes them trauma, causes them physical impact, causes them heart problems, blood pressure issues, which is why we actually respect and recognize them and look at early retirement in some of the cases, because they age faster because of the stresses that they have. So we need to respect the fact that they are part of the community and they are committed to doing the right thing. And I can tell you, with my conversation, interaction with the police officers, I have yet to find anybody who says it's okay to have the bad apples. I have yet to find anybody who says that what happened to George Floyd was acceptable. I have yet to find anybody who says that the alleged murderer is not a murderer for Derek Chauvin. That's very clear in everybody's mind. So what are the ways to address this? And the ways to address this, that we need a policy that would actually make sure that we have a protection from the bad apples, because nobody wants their profession, a profession which is an honorable profession, to be maligned by an individual, the criminals, if you will, and people who are sick in their minds, who do not have enough care and respect for people who look different. That's the kind of people who need to not be a part of the force, because they harm everybody. They harm the honorable profession. Who is willing to give their life for protecting the communities that they serve? And that honorable profession is being harmed, and the police needs to recognize that this bill is going to protect them from those bad apples which are actually harming them. So the public actually has the right to have equal protection of the law. Equal. That's all it's people are asking. Nobody's saying in the bill that we need to have special treatment, just equal treatment. And if people are having problem with the fact that somebody is asking for equal treatment, then we have a problem. And the fact that people are having a problem with the word equal itself is an issue that we will have to address. And then I believe that the police needs qualified immunity. Which other profession you have to make a split-second decision which can actually be detrimental to your personal health? You don't have the time to take and register whether you should take an action or not. So we have to recognize that reality for the police officers, and yes, there needs to be immunity that needs to be there, and that also needs to be there to protect them from the frivolous lawsuits. And this bill actually does that. It is not taking away that, and I'll explain that to you. And this is actually made more confusing than what it is. And that's the job of the lawyers sometimes, but this is what it takes at times. We are talking about the civil lawsuits. Now, one or two bad apples can actually have an impact on the entire community. And it actually erodes the relationship that we have between the public and the police. And we need to have mechanisms to have a protection from such bad apples for the police department and the municipalities and the public. And what would be the way to do this? The way to do this is to actually have a preventive strategy, and this bill talks about the preventive strategy. It is talking about implicit bias training. We all have biases. It's a human reaction to how we have experienced life. And there's a reason to actually start to look at this, learn from it, and then have a solution for it, and everybody needs to go through this, including the legislators for that matter, and I'd say legislators absolutely must. I have been part of training the police department. I've trained about 2,000 or so police officers in the last many years because I am part of helping train them about the bias training in some levels because I'm also a minority and I'm telling them about some of the perspectives and people are interested, and by the time they're done with the conversation, they recognize each and every person has biases and we actually need to overcome them. But that's part of the training, it's preventive, it's a good thing. Police task force on transparency and accountability, yes. Why don't we have that? It's a no-brainer. Civilian police review boards, if 90% or 57% of the population is concerned about how people are perceiving the police department, the police should be lining up and saying, we need a way to try and build this trust because no police can do policing without community. And we are giving a vehicle to have that community connection. Cameras protect the police more than they protect the people. That's the other thing that we are asking, have the cameras. If you really have a sit-down conversation one-to-one with the police officers and the police chiefs, they would say if we didn't have to pay for those cameras, we actually would love to have those cameras because it protects us, because somebody can say whatever they want to about us, we have a proof. And more likely than not, that's going to help the police than anybody else. And this bill actually helps them get the money too. So this whole concept that this is about defunding the police, no, please don't do that. Don't do that to win an election. Don't do that to do that. This is not even in the bill. It's wrong, my friends. You're saying wrong things, inaccurate things, which are so easily verifiable. It's not defunding the police. It's actually giving you more money to have cameras. Please, this community is more strong than anybody's election. So don't try to divide us. Don't try to do the things that are truly inaccurate, which are about one Google search or Word document search of the bill away to be proven wrong. Increasing the diversity in the police force? Yes. Why is that a threat to the police? Never has been, and nobody's actually questioning that. The police needs a mechanism to remove bad apples. This is what this conversation is about. And that's where it comes in, is officers retain their governmental immunity if their actions are based on objectively good faith belief. Let that sink in. If a police officer takes an action on an objectively good faith belief, they have the immunity. Now, do we need police officers in our community who are doing bad faith activities? Maybe it's not the right way to ask people to raise hands, but if I had that opportunity, I'd say, how many of the people in the Senate, how many people in the community, how many police officers want police officer who would actually do activities with bad faith? And I'd be shocked if one single hand raises up, because I know many of you and I know you have a strong moral compass. And it also says, the bill says that people who are actually going to do things to harm the other fellow individuals with malice, with a willful bad intention, those are the ones that we are targeting, and these are bad apples. This is how you define a bad apple, and the bill is about the bad apples. If somebody's trying to confuse you and saying that it's against the police officers, it's against the bad apples in the police officers, not the police officers. Please recognize that fact. All of us need to go through so many trainings. Well, guess what? Let's think about this. We all had to clean our hands. We all have to maintain the distance. Why do we have to do that? Because there is a risk that one of us may have an infection. And we are all following the rules because one of them has an infection. I would say, you know what? I don't have the infection. How dare you try to stop me? I'm not going to wear my mask. I'm not going to stay my 6 feet distance because I am clean and I'm going to be fine. We all have a responsibility to make sure that we protect everybody by following some rules, and these are the guidance and the rules that we are talking about. And then it's fascinating that we are having these conversations right now. I want to share some other things because I've heard very interesting comments by my colleagues. I will go through them pretty fast. They say that somebody mentioned a comment that my district is different than Senator Winfield, therefore I cannot vote for you. Let me ask you, if your district is different based on the financial background or the racial background, and therefore you don't think it's an issue impacting you, and we are a state of 3.5 million people that you can drive from one corner to the other, and now as our community is changing, are our moralities and our recognition of a challenge for a community going to be defined by the makeup of a community, then you are a part of the problem, not a part of the solution. To say that my community's makeup is a little different, therefore I do not need to vote yes for this bill, makes me cringe. Somebody says this is not the time to do this. So tell me which, we are 400 years out, so how many more years do people have to wait? My African American brothers and sisters have to wait for some kind of a mechanism, and then tell us the time so we can actually wait for that time. Because when will that be the time? We are seeing murders happen, we are having an impact on the children. What is the good time? And this was the other argument somebody made, this is not the time to do it. And then somebody says, we don't have the money for it. Okay, so you're putting a dollar value in the lives of a child. Let me ask you, what is a dollar value, so I can understand what is your perspective of a life of somebody, and then I'm going to ask you, what if that person is your child, what is the dollar value of that child if that was your child? Because these are our children, and we are leaving them behind, and we are having them be treated differently, so we have to look at that as well. And somebody said a lot of people will have to retire if this bill passes. Please, my friends, my police officers, don't panic because of what somebody is telling you to think. Don't panic because of what you're hearing. Read the bill. There's no reason for you to panic or retire unless you are a bad apple and you are verifiably a bad apple. And that's the very simplistic term, so please don't let anybody scare you into that, because there is no reason for anybody to move in that direction. Somebody said the qualified immunity. Well, the qualified immunity has two-prong test. Good. But guess what? That two-prong test was back in 2001 based on the Supreme Court Saucier versus Katz decision. And 2009 by Pearson versus Callahan, that two-prong test was impacted because the first prong was removed and the second prong is dependent on the first prong. So it's like a state of confusion from 2009 till now. And therefore, every single person has qualified immunity now because the two-prong test doesn't hold true. That is based on the professors of law who have actually looked at this, and they're saying that the qualified immunity has basically everybody is qualified immunity because the two-prong test doesn't exist since 2009. So that's something you need to look at as well, because 2001 to 2009, if we were in that time, maybe we can have a different conversation, but we are not in 2008, we are not in 2001, we are in 2020 when we started this conversation. Good officers are hurt by this. This is so clear. This bill will protect the good officers. And there's going to be a cost to the towns. That was the other part. Somebody was saying that there's a cost to the town. I think Senator Bizzarro actually said it probably very effectively. He said that so much money is already being spent by the municipalities. If the municipalities are already spending so much money, do you know why they're spending so much money? Because there is a problem. There is a problem. And they're settling because there is a problem. And does this bill help? Absolutely. If you have a bad apple that actually is going to continue to abuse and do things in bad faith and maliciously, the taxpayers will be protected. This is important for you to recognize. The taxpayers will be protected, because why should I and you and everybody be paying taxes for the bad apples who are actually doing malicious things? And guess what? Now we are talking about less than 1% probability, because I know the state of Connecticut is a different level, but at the same time not at the level that we would expect ourselves to be. But we are far better than any other state, thankfully. But that's something that I think is important to recognize. And then people use the word defunding very easily. There's not a single word in there about defunding. Please don't confuse and say wrong words which are not there. And then I was shocked by somebody saying that by doing searches, you're de-escalating a problem. I don't understand that, so I'm not going to go into that, but that was a confusing remark made by somebody. I think, end of the day, this was something that was very profound, that was said that justice will not be served until those who are unaffected are as outraged as those who are. I think that's the bottom line. And as people look at this. I just want to leave you with two thoughts. One paper, two sides, one family. If we tear one side and the other side is going to be harmed, it's going to be a collective future. Let's not figure out a way to divide ourselves. Let's fix what we can fix to make it better. And as people are going to vote today, as you press this button later tonight, I want you to think, if you're saying no to the bill, that would you like your children to be treated how our African American brothers and sisters' children are treated? And if the answer to that is yes, then you can comfortably say no to your vote. But if the answer to that is no, then I think I would urge you to reconsider. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Anwar.